if you want freely and fairly. And so my response is really as a citizen. My response is as a Zimbabwean who wants to make sure that we don't waste time again. I mean, another 5 years just with this uncertainty of our heads is not something that we can afford. And I can say this to you even as journalists, because I truly believe that all of us want the same thing. You want to be able to function in a country where you're going to get paid for your work. You want, as a journalist even, to be able to afford, going to cover a story. You want, as a journalist, to be able to afford a car. You want to be, as a journalist, to be able to afford healthcare. I mean, this is not something that is, just something that politicians talk about. This is life. And so we need to make sure that whoever runs our country has a clean, full mandate from the Zimbabwean people. And, yesterday we received Mr. Mnangagwa's response to the petition. It's quite big, that response. And our own is about 20-something pages. And I started thinking about that actually last night. The truth does not need all this noise that we get. The truth is very, very simple. And if you read our affidavit, you'll find that we're really just focused on some very, very specific things. If more people voted at a polling station than were registered at that polling station, there was fraud. I mean, it doesn't take 500 pages to make that point. If there are some polling stations which just appeared from nowhere, then there was fraud. If the numbers don't add up, then there was fraud. Someone wrote this morning and commented on someone who had said something about affidavit and said, I expected them to dazzle me with all this legal language and so on. And I thought, my goodness, this is not entertainment. We're not here to entertain people and to show them just how brilliant we are. We're here to tell people the truth. If the number of people who voted at a polling station exceed the number of people who were registered to vote, there was fraud. So you can argue, you can bring 3,000 pages of argument. It doesn't mean anything. And really, to be honest with you, I really don't think that this should be a difficult decision for the judges of the Constitutional Court. If they look at the numbers, there's a lot of interesting things that you find in the numbers. And you guys as journalists, I hope you have had the opportunity to actually look at the data that was provided by ZEC, not something that is being provided by people who are in the opposition. No. I hope you have the opportunity to really look at what ZEC provided you. Because what you're going to find is that there are so many polling stations where candidates had the same number of votes. And statistically, that's impossible. It really is impossible. And one of the things that kept happening as we complained, which is how some of people characterize it as complaints. These were not complaints. We were pointing out things which were real, and some of the things that you guys covered. Like, for instance, when in January we wanted to have a rally in Zimba, and we had police clearances and everything, and we proceeded to organize this at great expense, and we went over there only to find out that Minister of Justice Ziyambi had written a letter to the Rural District Council of Zimba and said that every venue and every time slot in Zimba had been booked by ZANU-PF until after August. And to be honest with you, and I say this really from the bottom of my heart, I really expected some people in the press to really make a big deal out of it. I know there were some who did, but there were some who just ignored it. It has serious implications for this country when someone who is a justice minister sends out an order like that. And you know what I expected? I also expected ZEC to be exercised about it, and to actually come out and even call a press conference and say, this is unacceptable. because that's the role that ZEC is supposed to play. ZEC is not supposed to play the role of defending itself. ZEC is supposed to play the role of defending the votes of the Zimbabwean people. That's it. That is its role. And you know, I also saw in many instances when people would have legitimate issues with ZEC, and they would approach ZEC, that there was this attitude, and it comes from a real misunderstanding of the role that the chairperson of ZEC is supposed to play. When you are appointed to a constitutional body like ZEC, it's not a court of law. And we know that in a court of law, you are the ultimate authority as a judge. So you can tell people, shut up and stuff like that. But not when it comes to